The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed on the Canna Connect Show belong solely to the individuals and do not reflect those of Canna Connect and its affiliates, sponsors, or partners. Canna Connect does not promote or facilitate any activity that violates state or federal regulations. Everything you hear here is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not legal advice, it is not financial guidance, and it's definitely not medical direction. Seriously, don't take our word for it. Even if someone on the mic sounds like they know what they're talking about, and they're probably crazy smart too. Regardless of how legit our guests may be, you should always do your own homework, consult with your attorney, and understand the risk you're taking before you do anything when it comes to cannabis. Our intention is to keep it real. If you've got a problem with anything we've said, take us to court.
Welcome back to the Canna Connect Show. I'm your host, Stephen Eigenmann, and today on the show, I am joined by Tanner Berris.
Thanks for having me.
And we're back. Stephen Eigenmann and Tanner Berris live on the Canna Connect Show.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody watching on YouTube. We are doing this for the first time in like a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as far as what's going on right now, you just got back from Moorhead.
Yep.
The Minnesota Frost are in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
It's like we never left.
I know. It's pretty similar to when we sort of signed off at the end of the last season of Northern Lights podcast. I would say the cannabis industry is in a very different place. But in terms of everything else in Minnesota, yeah, it's history rhymes, that's for sure.
History rhymes.
But yeah, no, thank you for having me. This is an incredible studio. It was neat being escorted in and being shown to like a green room, and this is a cool step up.
There's not nearly as much beer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. And you can't walk through the cases of it, but it's a neat party scene.
No, they've got it. Open Window Productions. They do a great job. They're we're in St. Paul, roughly.
Yeah.
And we found these guys. We were looking for a live stream crew to do some educational content that we did at the Wilderness last summer. And Tommy found like 3 and called this one, and they offered the best deal. And so that's kind of how we got started.
Very cool.
In some ways I feel like I've outgrown the Wilderness at this point, or the brand has outgrown the Wilderness with education. And I sort of struggle with the word education because it comes up with every brand or every business, like they want to provide education. I guess it's a way to get the conversation started, depending on what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But like doing education during the day on a Wednesday or Thursday, or doing education on like a Monday night, like not everyone's going to be able to make it to your educational event.
Oh yeah, don't I know? Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I agree with you where I think back to the early days of hemp where people were just excited to have products online. You had your CBD topicals, you had your, maybe Delta 8 products early days. And education wasn't really part of the conversation, I think, as much. And then I think through necessity, it really became, I would say, like the essence of the Minnesota cannabis culture is you have to educate, you have to be on the advocacy side, you have to sort of be out there telling people, here's what it is that we have. And but yeah, it's a bit more challenging, I would say, when the world of cannabis education is filled with everyone as an expert.
But not to slow your roll there, one of the harder parts, I think, was like the limitations with medical cannabis with respect to education, and knowing that medical cannabis came before CBD and Delta 8 and Delta 10.
Very much so, yeah.
RIP HHC. Hey everybody, Stephen with Canna Connect, taking a quick minute to shout out today's sponsor, CEE. That is the Center for Energy and Environment. If you're not familiar with CEE, they're your one-stop shop for all lighting rebates. If you are in XL Energy territory and you're a micro business, CEE is somebody that you need to talk to. Give Brad a call, give Tony a call, go online, one-stop shop, LED lighting rebates. They'll help take care of up to 60% of the costs associated with your grow and your build-out with the lighting. Really nice people, great people to work with, huge sponsors of Canna Connect, and give them a shout. That's CEE, Center for Energy and Environment. When you talk about advocacy, and I bring up medical marijuana, we had Meme Machine Farms on last year to chat, and like that's where he got his start.
Mm-hmm.
And many folks got their start around medical cannabis and advocating for medical cannabis or better access to medical cannabis. I just think like in some ways we were doomed from the beginning with how that, and that's maybe short-sighted for me to say, but like so niche in who was really advocating for better medical cannabis access. And now we have flower, and since you and I have been sitting down and talking to people, like we've had flower, it came online during the last couple of years, but almost like too late.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. And I think what we've seen is our industry really divided by label. You talk about medical cannabis. I think hemp, I think, the adult use side, I think if you want to call it, we'll talk a little bit about scheduling later, but I think our industry is being chopped up into these different components, and we're really going to only find, I think, that next step of whatever that is, hopefully legalization, hopefully it's a step forward.
Yeah. I mean, adult use alcohol, nobody uses adult use.
No.
There's teen use alcohol.
Yeah.
It's not legal.
I miss the days of medical alcohol. That was pretty sweet, I wasn't there for it, but, I've heard good things.
A true apothecary.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a perfect example, is there were times where we really had those labels. Minnesota, I think, is unique. My understanding is we're the only state in the country that still has the 3.2 restrictions around what alcohol can be sold at like gas stations.
Sunday beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All that jazz.
Yeah.
And I think cannabis will forever be something similar to that, but hopefully we can move quicker in the right direction before we see, I think the labels continue to really lead to some damage. I think the pushback around hemp federally is going to be one of those examples where, yes, perhaps there was more widespread access to cannabis products than the Farm Bill intended, but I think we're seeing a step in the direction of prohibition instead of regulation. Well, we've seen that just doesn't work. What does work is creating safe regulations like we have in Minnesota. Can you receive hemp products that are rich in THC in the mail? Yeah, for sure. Are there safety regulations around that compared to other states? Yeah, way more so.
It's harder to get it shipped now than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah. And as an industry, I think that's the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
I want there to be widespread access. We've talked about this on previous shows, everything, where there should be access. And gas station weed, I know people talk about it as like a negative, but I do want cannabis to be as accessible as it can be. And it is neat that people can buy, cannabis beverages at gas stations, at liquor stores, at things like that. And like without there being that access, I don't think we would have had such advanced shifts in our understanding around cannabis in Minnesota.
And Quick Trip wants it as well.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
So it seems like month over month, quarter over quarter, more and more mainstream convenience or retail grocery type outlets are bringing on hemp beverages, even though days go by and we're facing a ban in 6 months.
Totally. I looked on Polymarket. Unfortunately, there's not a bet for whether the Farm Bill, language will change before November 13th, I think it's the date. November 11th.
Is it like Wiki? Like, how do you get something nominated onto Polymarket?
I wish I knew. Because I would love to be making that bet, because there's so many people in our industry that I think are very optimistic that there will be a change, that the bill that Klobuchar has been pushing will make its way through, that maybe Angie Craig, she's trying to get her name out a little bit more. Maybe she'll be pushing for hemp a bit more than she has in the past.
Yeah. She has a race that she's up against.
Yeah. I'm not as optimistic that we'll see that change. I think come November, we're going to see a radical shift in our industry that's going to really change how cannabis is accessed. As of today, you can get high THC rich oil shipped across state lines as like a in production product. I think that sort of goes away come November, when the federal understanding around what hemp is very clearly defined as not that.
Wow. I mean, it's a movie with a lot of CGI and a lot of explosion, and also a lot of gray area or under the table dealings, because we're not robots. Like, yes, the bill will go into if the bill goes into effect November 12th, you don't lose your ability to do that. It just becomes illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference between
Absolutely.
being illegal and being compliant.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, let's not kid ourselves. We're an industry that was built by people who weren't following the law. But how many stores will continue selling hemp products after November? I think a decent amount. Even the feds and some of their notings around the changes noted that they don't really have the regulatory capacity to be able to enforce this change in law. And so, on paper, they'll change it. I guess we'll see what
it reminds me of the city of St. Paul with the citations that they were considering.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And they didn't have the ability to enforce
Yeah.
citation.
Yep.
So that anytime they're passing rules that they can't enforce, it's an overstep on individuals' rights.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's an interesting time to be in the cannabis industry, that's for sure. How long have we been saying that? It's a while.
We'll keep saying it.
Mhm.
You touched on the different, I identify as a medical cannabis patient. I identify as an adult use or a recreational user. I identify as a low potency or a hemp beverage consumer.
Mhm.
Maybe since the last time you and I have chatted, the alcohol industry has warmed up to the need to create some viable path forward for.
Yeah.
But it's through this traditional 3-tier system where the distributor really holds a lot of the power, or it's a relationship, and it's not OP1 lugging cases of drinks
Totally.
store to store.
Yeah, no, very much so. I think for a while we had a hemp industry that really you could be a small scale producer, a small scale retailer, and get into the industry with a pretty low bar regulatorily wise.
But that's that craft versus industrial.
Yeah,
conversation.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Where suddenly, and I think we're in a really unique period right now where if someone applied for an adult use license, they have 18 months to continue operating under their hemp license before that all sort of goes away. So we have a lot of people in Minnesota right now that aren't necessarily licensed as hemp manufacturers, and they aren't licensed as adult use manufacturers, but they're still able to legally produce products because they have a license that's under review. They're operating under the old rules and will continue to until their 18-month timeline expires. I think we have a lot of people right now that met that bar of, I got an application in, I got pre-approval, which that was a pretty low bar, generally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, the stakes have been raised since.
Yeah. But I think that next step of going from pre-approval to actually being licensed, operating, opened, those are two vastly different worlds. And so I think we'll see a lot of, and I think OP will get his license. I don't mean this to like knock on him, but I think we'll see a lot of people that operated in that small scale craft. I can sort of just start a brand out of nothing.
Yeah.
Really struggle to transition into that adult use market because, that you have to actually have the facility. You have to have everything that's required to be able to start that brand.
So in a way, what we're talking about is like the jump between the statutes of like 172 versus chapter 342.
Yes. Yeah, I believe. Yeah.
What other instances of that are you aware of from a challenges perspective of operating as it was, the hemp's kind of operating under hemp rules, and now having to move to, fully regulated through the OCM, cannabis? Like, are there other challenges that you've noticed?
Well, so I think it echoes of like the early days of hemp really coming online as being licensed in 2021. Lupulin is a great example of, they had the 50 milligram smazies, what they were, that all of a sudden overnight, you can't sell that anymore in Minnesota. And so I think you had a lot of people that had to shift and adapt to that. I think this will be similar.
Mm-hmm. But there's like, I ran into Opie at CannaFest, and they're like even just like pop-up events where you were able to sell.
Yeah.
Maybe the place had a liquor license. That was usually like the best case. Like if they had if a brewery was having like a market and they have a liquor license, well then all the hemp licenses or all the hemp businesses can do what they do. Now it's not so simple. Like there's such oversight, there's such control on these products, there's such regulation on these products. Like I was talking to our previous guest, and there's only been 2 cannabis event licensed events that have happened in more than 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think back to some of the Canna Connect events at the Wilderness where like Storks and Bickles sponsored and had a table in back with all the vaporizers that people could go and use with their home grow. And like OCM wouldn't love that today. If it doesn't really fly with sort of our modern understanding of the rules. And yeah, I mean, we knew it at the time that we were sort of living in that great in-between gray area.
Yeah.
But it truly, I think it's for real. Like thinking about the amount of background work that had to go into planning the early legacy cups where you showed up. I think I'd won. I even got my bag at the event with all the samples in it. And they're like, just judge it. And I'm like, all right, great.
Very pandemic.
Yeah. And now we've come to a day where like it is so licensed and structured that it's fun, but it's different. That's for sure.
I think I hear you. I think we've both seen a lot, done different things in the industry, worked for different groups, and been exposed to opportunities as well as challenges. You've always been more on the compliance side of understanding the rules. Yes, you can pretend you don't know the rules, but what we're saying is those days are ending. Like those days are numbered in not really going by the book.
Mm-hmm.
Now the book is more, it's required reading.
Yeah, totally. I went to a licensed dispensary. I don't want to name or shame. They were selling, this was right before the beeswax recall, beeswax pre-rolls that said, THC or below 0.3% THC on the package, hemp dried pre-roll. And I had a little sign next to it that said 18% THC. And they just said, yeah, they're working on their licensing stuff. And I think the days of education are now. OCM's coming in and saying, hey, we don't do that here. I think soon it will turn into, hey, you don't have your license anymore. Like you can't just claim ignorance. Now I think a lot of people can, and I think there's even more people that are really trying their best and are working to try to operate within the rules. I think of Lucky Strains that bought legal tribal product through the system that they were supposed to, only to have OCM turn around and go, actually, that's not compliant for sale in Minnesota. That's only tribally compliant. And had to then, I believe, give the product back. I don't quote on that. But they're educating now. I don't think they will be.
Right. Do you think, the OCM's a really tough one because I don't even know what to say.
Yeah. I think, wow. So here's what I'll say about OCM. I've been very excited by some of their recent moves they've been doing. Their guidance memos, I think, are clear to a point of almost too clear, which is helpful at times. I also think they recognize the limits of what they're able to do. I was at a hemp event, when was this? November of last year, with Eric Tobble and a bunch of the local craft brewery manufacturers talking about what are we going to do when this testing rule changes come January. At the time, obviously the law hadn't changed. We were sort of looking at this looming deadline. And Eric said, like, my hands are tied. There's only so much that I can do. We're looking into creative ways that we'd be able to solve this problem. But as of right now, I can't just kick this testing deadline down the road. So what they did instead is they just kicked the licensing deadline down the road and said, we're just not going to license anyone until March. So those rules they just don't apply until the legislature has been in session for at least a month. And it just sort of worked out that the law happened to get signed just a few days before that March deadline. And so suddenly everything was handy-dory. And I think I will give OCM a lot of credit that they're within the rules that were written for them are trying to make it work. I wish there was more emphasis on actually getting social equity businesses up and running. OCM is great. They provide a lot of data. You can look and see who's been licensed. And you can see, I believe we're at less than 50%, maybe 50%. And in certain categories, you don't have any social equity license applicants, even though they've been applying, they've gotten pre-approval.
Right.
I know some of the businesses are really tough to get up and running, especially a testing lab. You're looking at $500,000, $1 million investment, but there could be, I think, more support.
Yeah. And the 35% ownership is a challenge, or the 65% ownership is a challenge, and that got talked about potentially being changed in the legislature this year.
Yep.
We're recording this on May 6th. So
Yeah, you picked a wonderful time. There's actually a hearing happening like as we're recording, and so we aren't able to talk about whether the bill made its way through or not because I don't know right now.
we should have recorded on Friday afternoon.
I know, right? That's the time when OCM comes out with new stuff. But yeah, no, I think the legislature is really looking at practical changes to be able to move the industry forward in a way that works for operators and works for consumers. I think the big thing missing from the conversation is the home grower. This is where I'm going to shamelessly plug my Substack. I posted an article about home growers are really at risk of being criminalized for growing too much cannabis. And there's a lot of rules that I think could be loosened that brings us back to the days of the markets where people could start brands on a pretty low basis.
Yeah.
I can make hot sauce from gardens that I grow in my yard, sell them to people, and as long as I take a safety class that the state provides, you're set. You're sort of good to go.
Wow.
I think we could be looking for similar rules around the craft cannabis grower.
But I wonder if cyclically, I wonder if this happens naturally or it's human nature to some degree, where we're acknowledging that brands are being phased out. Just through the market conditions. Like I think we've definitely peaked as far as the number of hemp beverages that are, on the store shelves. But maybe, and I do think we need to come together in order to get rules that benefit the home grower and benefit the social equity groups. And like, we do need to have more of a unified voice like we had 4 years ago as we approach 2023. But I wonder if now is the time, in a sense, like looking ahead to the next 12 months, to say, okay, there's been a wave of openings. There's more of a polished industry when it comes to dispensaries and supply chain. Now it's time to reclaim home grower rights and make sure that we're not over policing. We make sure that the government is not over policing.
I certainly hope so. I think we're entering a different time in our market. There used to be a time where I think as a cannabis consumer, you could call a lawmaker and say, hey, here's the legalization bill that I'm looking for. Me and my nonprofit, we've got this bill. We'd really like to push for it. You could get it to be introduced, and that was sort of a change that happened. I think, obviously, it wouldn't get a ton of traction, but it's got introduced.
Yeah.
I think there's less of that now. If you're looking at the amount of money that people are spending on lobbying on the cannabis side, it's night and day difference than what it was just 5 years ago.
More.
Significantly, yeah. You just have more people that are invested in what actually ends up happening. You've got the tribal company, or excuse me, the tribal investment firm, like the business cooperatives that are looking to make money off of this.
Yeah.
You've got the medical companies that have been spending money on lobbying and continue to.
Right.
And then you've got new multi-state operators that are looking at this as a potential place to come in and say, hey, those macro business licenses, that looks pretty sick. How could I get one of those?
Yeah, that looks like what I had in Illinois, or that's...
Yeah, not too dissimilar. And suddenly now if I'm doing that, and I'm also doing medical, so now I get to grow a little bit more. I've got these stores that are set up in 8 different like you've got suddenly something that looks like sort of a successful operating cannabis business that, isn't at scale of what you have in places like Florida or Oklahoma or whatever, but I think it's still larger than what the early days of our market envisioned.
Okay. And the way we keep score in our society is taxes.
Yeah.
So it all comes back to revenue produced for the state.
Yeah. Very much so. And I'm not, I'm not kidding myself that I think the home growers have some huge voice in the market. But I do think that the legacy side of our market that has operated for as long as we've been around continues to have a role and should sort of claim that voice to say, there's a side of this market that is still safe, that is still operational, that still functions, and it's how we've gotten cannabis for years.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how to really create that pathway. Because when the micro license was first introduced, it was said, this is how we're going to allow people to get into the market at a really low bar.
Yeah.
And I think what we saw is that bar is low at times but we can make it lower, and we can create these steps that allow people to get up to that,
Right.
that still allow them to operate within the market, still provide product, but in a way that's, I think, a little bit more creative. We've been a state that's long been creative on cannabis regulations.
Yeah.
I remember when we had the New Hampshire or Vermont consultants that came in and described this as a uniquely quirky Minnesota market. And it's true. And I think we can sort of lean into that to find ways that really benefit people and benefit the consumer.
Mm-hmm. Are you growing this year?
I am, yeah. So the best part about working for a cannabis education nonprofit is that you get to go to a lot of grow classes. And so I've taken what I've learned from those. About a week ago, I got this huge tarp and I laid it out in my front driveway. I got rice hulls and compost and sort of mixed up my own super soil a la Cornell. It was further away from the brewing equipment than we were doing, but still there. I got the beds outside. I've started my plants indoors, like I learned from Clem and Matt, and getting that all ready to go. I'm growing some bloom cuts that I got from a friend this year, so looking forward to sort of seeing how those do outdoors in Minnesota. And just topped my indoor tent not that long ago.
Okay.
Just barely met that legal threshold.
Good size indoor grow then.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
A good size plant.
Yeah, so I just go the one plant, one tent method. So I've got a 3x3 tent, a 3x3 bed inside of there. I let the plant take up the entire tent.
So it's short, but
exactly, yep.
Round.
Classic screen of green. That's sort of the method that I like to go with. And yeah, just get as many of those flower sites as possible.
Okay.
And then I used to argue with Clem about this. Dr. Dabney. I used to argue with him about, is it genetics? Is it good growing? There's a lot of people that I think say I'm a really good grower, and there are really good growers out there. Mm-hmm. But Dr. Dabney used to always compare it to like raising cows. You can be a really good cow farmer or rancher. The term escapes me.
Rancher's beverage?
Yeah, exactly. You can provide them the right grass. You can give them the right, whatever you want to do. But you need the good genetics to create good meat.
Okay.
I think cannabis is really similar, where if you have really good genetics, you can treat it like shit, and it's still gonna grow. Okay. Can I swear on this?
I think it's fine.
Treat it like crap, and you can still get a really good plant out of it. And so I'm not at all claiming that I'm a good grower. I've spent a lot of time around good growers to know that I'm low on the threshold. But
I think that's such a funny question. Like, it's the childhood instinct of, can I swear on this recording?
Yeah. I'm pretty certain, but now that we're live, I don't know if you can edit it out.
Some words you can't say.
Okay, all right, yeah. I'll avoid those for now. That will be for the OnlyFans show.
So, what genetics did you grow indoors?
So I was given a Trap Cookies Rainbow Guava cross. So it's two pretty well-established cuts that they have, that I was given a seed that was selected out of a pack of 8.
Okay.
So it's not one of like the bloom specific cuts, but it's still a pretty nice cut that I was excited about.
Okay.
It was pretty nice. It was about a 4% washer to bubble, then slightly less than that when I pressed it out.
So still are. I haven't talked to you in a while. Are you still refining your flower?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I do it all. I've got it in the garage now. So since we spoke, I think I can't remember if it was happening right around the end of the show. I moved. I now have a garage. It's very exciting. It's not a nice garage, so we don't really park cars in it, which is perfect because that actually makes it the hash lab.
Yeah.
And so we've done a couple washes out there. We're reached the end of the season now. It's pretty warm out, so
right. They'll need cool temps.
Yeah, it was really nice when it was 20 out. That was really great for washing. Less so when it's like 50. Really great for growing now soon, but
I have 3 plants going in my upstairs. They're in my windowsill.
Okay, nice.
They're just getting natural lighting. My hope is that, and I'll run this past you. Mm-hmm. My hope is that I can then transfer the indoor houseplants into the outdoor yard.
Yeah, totally.
And then let them do their thing outside.
Absolutely. That's sort of my plan as well.
Okay.
I've got a couple that I started, they're just cuts of the other plant, but they're rooted and ready. That soon will go outside. This is the part that I always get nervous about, where like it's sort of what's the diminishing return where like at some point it's better for it to be outside even though it's a little bit chilly versus it being too cold for it to be outside.
Sure.
Like I think it's supposed to frost tonight specifically.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't have any plants outside now.
Okay.
But I'm looking at hopefully like next weekend, maybe the weekend
It's
after.
always Mother's Day or right around.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so looking to sort of around that time period to get everything outside. I got large garden beds. They're like 4 feet across, I don't know, like 1.5 feet deep.
Yeah.
That I filled with that super soil.
Are they
that I made.
raised?
They are.
In a
Yep.
sense, yeah.
Yeah. That they'll be going in. I grew outdoor last year, only in like the latter part of the season, all in just pots. Hoping that the raised garden beds this year will just give them more room to grow, hopefully get larger plants.
Yeah.
We'll see.
The last couple summers have been really good for Minnesota outdoor grown.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota outdoor grown as a market, as a source for what turns into products,
Yeah.
primarily will be seen as what biomass, turned into oil, maybe refined into more high quality products.
Yeah.
But is there also a market for outdoor flower, like sun-grown flower in Minnesota?
I do think so. I want to start by saying I think greenhouse is sort of that like nice crossover where you're getting the sun, but like a little bit more controlled in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
But Minnesota, you can get some wonderful flower grown outdoors. We have a shorter season than other places, but you can still get some really high quality cannabis.
Stefan Egan is doing it in real life with
totally.
with Verris Fields.
Absolutely. And I think we've seen a number of people that grow outdoors, not just to use for solventless, not just to use for, the pens they're making.
Yeah.
It's actually really been neat to see all the different products that people are making in our market, slowly but surely. But yeah, I do think there'll be a market for outdoor flower, especially when people are looking at, I want to get a high quality product, but I also want something that's affordable. And it's hard to beat the free sun.
Right. Right.
There's obviously there are costs that go into growing outdoors, but it's a night and day difference in growing indoors. And if the consumer is willing to look at something and go, hey, that's a third the cost and maybe only 75% is good,
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that. That's still fine.
Right. The flower itself may not look as nice, but from what I remember learning with you and others, you get better trichomes sometimes through the sun-grown cannabis. So
Totally.
there are some advantages or benefits to, price being one of them.
Absolutely. I think I'm so excited that we have such educated consumers. It's great. It's really nice. I think especially compared to other markets, you can go to other states and look in dispensaries and they don't really list minor cannabinoids. Definitely listing terpenes has become more in vogue, but I think being educated around the product that you have is really good. I also think we need to recognize that as consumers, back in 2014 when I was buying cannabis, I wasn't asking if it was outdoor grown. I didn't know what strain it was. And I still had a positive enough experience that I said, I want to keep using cannabis. This is good. I'm going to buy more, whatever you take away from it. Yeah. I think there's really good cannabis, and I think it's cool that there's a lot of craft market around it. But I also think we need to recognize, like you were talking about earlier, craft versus industrial. There's also going to be this bar that people say that this is good enough cannabis. People go to a liquor store, and there's good beer, allegedly. But there's also the beer that people buy because that's the 24-pack that they can get that's cheapest for the party. People drink it. I think we're going to see the same in cannabis.
Sure. I definitely think so. I think this would be a good time for us to take a break and maybe try some real.
Oh yeah, I heard you
product. We've got C Labs first product review outside of like Coco Flow or the Green Standard.
Totally.
First adult use cannabis product review on the show.
Very cool.
No better person to do it with than
well,
yourself.
Thank you, man. I'm happy to be here.
And I feel like we could keep this conversation going through a dab as well as, kind of maybe talk about other stuff. But I mean, it's so complicated and it shouldn't be. I guess that's kind of my sentiment when it comes to legalization, descheduling, plant medicine.
Yep.
And maybe this super booth will open us up to having a further conversation on it. But also I understand it's extremely frustrating at the same time.
Yeah, I'm excited to give it a try.
the show is what you know it. Not a whole lot has changed. Yes, the studio looks different, the name's different, but it's Tanner, Steven, we're here. We've got our trusty Boveda Sea Vault, custom Sea Vault. We have the Puffco that
Sponsor the show.
That we would love to sponsor the show. We see you, Puffco. And then we have a brand new product just hit the market in April from C Labs. That's Concentrate Labs. They say cannabis redefined or refined, and this is the pencil to the tree in the forest. This is as far as I'm aware that you can take the product, and maybe there's certain different ways to further extract or refine, but as folks know who've watched this show in the past or the previous the Northern Lights shows, rosin, this is the fun stuff. This is the most pure form of the plant. You're able to taste the flavors. Each strain and cultivar is going to be different. Even each cut off your cultivar could be different.
I'm excited about this one. And this is a neat grower because if we think back to, the early days of people first getting their licenses, these guys, I think Roots and Resin Farms.
Is that who this comes from?
So one of the first people, I remember their story getting in the newspaper of like, we're going to grow all this and turn it into solventless rosin. Well, this is that. So if people were wondering, like, how long did it take to actually get something to market? This is something that was grown last summer, processed. I was looking at the jar. I found it very interesting. Made in January of this year, tested end of January. This was then made available and bought April, May.
Right. So March, I mean, and who knows, maybe some of these dealings were decided, late last year, early this year. I believe the rosin came online right around 420.
Okay. Yes.
Generally how I perceive the market as I remember the market. We're now.
It's a good launch.
Yeah. How was your 420?
It was relatively uneventful. It actually, this is a very different 420 than I've had in the past. As a teacher, I always just took the day off. I just sort of was very unashamed, and I just said, I'm just not working that day. Last year, it was on Easter, and so none of us were working. Hash rosin was the theme of last year. This was my first year working on 420 in like 6 years.
It was a Monday.
Yep, it was just a Monday. It was just another day at work. Okay. I remember our sales guy came in around noon and went, "Hey, happy 420, everyone!" And we turned to each other and we're like, "Oh, yeah, I guess." And so pretty unexciting, but
it's a shame because you know how the days move. Like your birthday might be on a Monday, and then the next year it's on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, and so on and so on. But like when legalization happened, it was a Saturday. That first 420, we ran into each other at Modest. That was 3 years ago. No, 2 years ago.
No, that's 3
we
years
were
ago this
celebrating
summer.
heavy.
Yeah, that's 2023. Wow. I know. I remember being on an early episode of Northern Lights with you and making some comment about like, oh, the early days of hemp, that was only like a couple years ago. And you're like, Tanner, I think that was 2021. And being like, oh, yeah, that's right. And we've been around and seen things change for a while, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I coming back to the thesis of all this, I'm excited that you had this. I think this is really neat. This will be, my understanding is, I think the most expensive oil I've ever smoked in my entire life. But I'm excited that it's here. I'm excited it's Minnesota grown, Minnesota processed. It's neat packaging. It's pretty cool.
I grabbed Super Boof because of all the fun we had.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
With Super Boof, and Super Boof being the strain of the year in 2024.
So when I saw that they only had 3 strains that they came out with, and Super Boof was one of them, it was terrible. But I had this moment where I was like, should I go buy that? and I didn't, or at least I haven't yet. We'll see how today goes. But I'm definitely excited to be able to give Super Boof a try.
And they also have a papaya that I considered. I considered buying both, and then I looked at the price and said, I can't afford that.
Yeah,
Let's
start with one today.
That. With a 0.5 gram, though, like as I was getting ready for this episode, I was thinking, like, in theory, could Tanner and I finish the entire jar in one sitting? Like, because a 0.5 gram is not a lot of rosin.
Yeah, I think I think we definitely could. I think if we're just doing tastings, we probably will only go through like maybe like half that at most.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the fun days of an early market is you see quantities sold that just really aren't sold other times.
Sure.
Um,
It's like 100 milligram CBD tincture.
yeah, exactly. It's technically people are buying it; they're excited about it. And I think it's because they do have such limited supply. They're trying to spread around as much as possible, and
Yeah.
half gram gets you twice as much product. And
I bought it at Legacy Minneapolis,
mhm.
and I ordered it ahead of time and then picked it up. She asked if I wanted a bag. I said yes, but I don't think it was refrigerated prior to it being
Okay.
handed. Now I don't know,
Yeah.
but like, the best way to care for it after purchase is in the fridge.
Yeah, so my preferred would be when you get it from the store, it being refrigerated.
Yeah.
Some people don't like that because then as you're driving it home, it like sort of warms
Moves.
up a little bit. You're getting that changes. But I think especially for long-term preservation where, okay, maybe I'm making some assumptions, but I assume that they're not selling through it the same day that they get it. Maybe they are.
Right.
And if they're doing that, then sure, leave it on the shelf. I don't really care. But I think if they're planning to have it for more than a week, yeah, I'd love it to be in the fridge.
And I shouldn't say that they did or didn't, because I actually was just on the outside of the dispensary because I went through the window. But
Talk about sort of a neat dispense. Like,
yeah,
it's been cool. We've mentioned a couple names so far on the show, but Josh is another one who's been around for such a long time in this industry.
right.
Seeing that store in Minneapolis come online, I didn't go to the Duluth opening. The Woodbury one is neat, but the Minneapolis is that's the store that I went to in college when I was looking to buy glass.
Yeah.
And so to now have that space right next door be the licensed dispensary, you walk through there, you exit into the gift shop of Legacy. It's pretty neat. It's it's very Minneapolis, very Legacy. It's cool to go to other markets and see the brands that have been built up and established there. It's like, this is what Colorado cannabis feels like, or this is Michigan. And I think Legacy will be one of those names that will probably stick around in the lexicon of Minnesota cannabis.
Yeah. I'm just surprised that they're the only shop in Uptown that's selling cannabis.
For now.
I'm just kidding.
All right. So let's give this a look.
Yes.
Do you want to pop it open? I mean, I
right.
feel bad doing that. So it's the nice pop vac jars. So you'll hear that very satisfying pop sound when you open it. Helps to keep those terpenes preserved. Oh yeah, there we go.
Ooh. Yeah, right away, a little bit lemony. Like I know what I will respond well to from Tanner's terp tasting. So, man, that is just a little gob.
Okay, now oh wow, yep. Oh yeah, so that's definitely super boofy. You get like a ton of that like creamy oranginess.
Creamy orange.
But yeah, it's very clearly spluted out. I don't know if it's like a machine or a hand. What that is?
Like a cake froster.
Yep.
Right?
Oh yeah, exactly. It's craft industrial. A lot of oil that you buy, especially in the larger dispensaries, is literally a giant machine that they fill with the oil.
Okay.
And then it's just like a conveyor belt of jars that it's moving through.
Machines.
This looks similar, but smells really great. And actually, it looks really good. I didn't really know exactly what to expect.
What do you like about the color?
It's sort of got like a nice yellow lightness to it. What I mean by that is like, it's not too amber. It's not too dark. I don't like the oil that's almost like white to the texture. I like when there's a little bit of color to it. It just means that there's more of those chirps that I prefer. So yeah, I mean, it looks great, but I agree with you. It's funny. I've never seen a half gram jar before.
It's this where we are right now. This is, and I know we already kind of said it, but this is like the most advanced product that we have, the most refined product that we have. It's a farm that has gone out and developed their own brand.
Yep.
It's not Tanner's Farm and then Tanner's Farm flower.
Yep.
It's Roots and Resin Farm. C Labs is the brand, and then they've taken their grow and brought it all the way to the resin form. I'm really excited.
Yeah, this will be neat. All right, here, I'll super sum up. Wow, yeah, so that, I mean, it looks really good. I don't know if we can see on the camera, but I'll still hold it up just because I'm excited about it. This is the first Tanner trip tasting in quite a long time.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
I've just been doing dabs, but refusing to taste it for just like a year. It's been a weird experience.
Just not inhaling.
Yeah, and we're good to heat it up in here. That's
Yeah.
cool.
They kind of were like, hey, when are you gonna? And that's kind of where I was like, well, I got to get some operators and stores kind of in the.
Yeah, fair.
Got to show them, try before you buy, kind of a thing.
Absolutely. Well, and I think this is like the truest form of being able to talk about cannabis products. Is for a long time it's been, limited in what scope and category we've been able to talk about. It's been, hey, we can, talk about weed generally, but this is now like, hey, I'm consuming it. Let's talk about this experience.
Yeah.
Here's that for you.
Thank you. Stay tuned. Flavor?
So yeah, that's incredible. That is Super Boof, true to the name. I used the word earlier, the creaminess of it, but it is almost like that vanilla, like aftertaste that I think is so good, where it's not just like that straight sour tangy flavor, but it's orange, but it's like orange soda. It's really nice and light. Yeah, this is where I need people that have much more defined palates to be able to come on and say, oh, this hits of notes of X, Y, and Z. But I think if you've ever had Super Boof before, you know what it tastes like, and this is true to that. Yeah, wow, that's pretty cool. What are your thoughts on that one?
I think I'd do another one. The orangey. I said lemon, but I was wrong. I think it is that orange citrus that my dab intake has been quite lower since the last Tanner Syrup tasting. Now, on the flower side, I'm definitely partial to the citrus and the limonene and just that citron that like I respond really well to it from a flower standpoint. So I thought about the papaya, but that papaya can go a little dark on you too. Like, and so I was like, let's go with Super Boof. So let me give it one more pull.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get way less of the sour elements that I think a lot of the citrus fruit gives you. And this is, it's tough exactly to describe.
It's straight through. It's clean. We're not roasting it at a super high temp, I don't feel. And I like that immediately you felt that there was a qualityness to this product, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, I remember thinking back to when I first started smoking weed, and people would be like, "Oh, this is Blue Dream," and then hearing others be like, "Well, that's not like this tastes nothing like Blue Dream." I think we're starting, at least I'm starting personally, to get to a point where it's like, yeah, this is something that I very clearly recognize. Like, I think you could have given me that without the jar, and I would have been like, wow, this is super boofy. I got to tour one of the tribal grows not too long ago. Very neat experience. And they opened one of their grow rooms indoors, and it's like, oh, I think Super Boof is in this room. And yep, there it was.
You could see, you could smell it before you saw it.
I think that's just one of those that just stands out to me as such a unique profile. I think Whitethorn Rose is another one where like there's just not other things like that right now. There's a lot that's similar, but it sort of has that like je ne sais quoi or whatever you will. That makes it a bit different.
I want to play with this craft and industrial conversation, as well as, touch on the fact that medical marijuana companies are going to be able to write off their marketing expenses now and their toilet paper and everything else that comes with 280E. Yes, we're interesting. Yes, we like to do things differently when it comes to Minnesota. We think we're interesting. Therefore, we do things differently. We have craft cannabis and we have industrial grade cannabis. And we also have really strict testing rules that degrade the industrial product due to the need to pass testing. Allegedly. So there can be multiple fights fought within the same war. Your battle, and it doesn't have to be military or war-driven vernacular, but like some folks are putting it all on the line.
Yeah.
Within their micro license. Other venture groups, maybe this is a portion of their portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's still a lot at risk, but it's not life or death.
Yeah.
And when you're an entrepreneur, depending on your circumstances, the ventures you take on may be in some way seen as life or death. And when you're dealing with a plant that's been villainized and stashed away and scheduled and uphill battles left and right, it becomes personal.
Mm-hmm.
Your battle becomes personal.
Mm-hmm.
But some of that is true across the spectrum because everybody does it for a reason.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be here if you didn't have a reason to do it.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think, it's important to reflect on, this is a really big arc of history that we're a part of. We're seeing the early days of this market rollout, but this isn't what's going to define what Minnesota cannabis is. This is building what's going to be what we see as cannabis in Minnesota. And I think brands like Concentrate Labs are really unique. They're really cool right now. And I hope that they continue to be successful in the future. I mean, that's clearly a good product. Like that's great. I hope that keeps being in our market. But I think it's going to switch at some point from not just you sell weed, but you sell weed, so what? And it's like, what is it that defines your brand? What is it that sets your products apart? What is it that makes a consumer want to walk into a store and go, that's something that I want to buy? There will be, of course, a market that thrives here in Minnesota. It might be that industrial side of things. It might be that craft side of things. It might be sort of like beers in Minnesota where we have a little bit of both. I hope that we continue to have craft products that are available and widely successful, but I'm at least optimistic, right? I think we have the right blocks in place to build the tool or to build the machine that allows both to operate. I think there are things that can go wrong along the way, but I hope that at least we're working in the right direction where soon the price goes down just because availability goes up, but the quality of product is just sort of the same. It's still something that we consider as craft, just on an industrial scale. I'll be curious to see, because I think the testing thing is real. Like the cost of being able to make a batch of a product, have it tested, and ensure that that passes testing and is available to consumers is a decently high bar financially. And also time-wise, where like I'm certain part of the delay of this is they were waiting for testing. And I'm certain part of the reason they only have 3 that they grew is because they can just reduce their testing costs by growing 3 instead of 4, 4 instead of 12, whatever be it.
I totally blanked on February and March being held up for testing.
Yeah, and so I think it will be, I'm excited to see where things go once the market matures a little bit. We've got 5 testing labs that are licensed now.
Yep.
We've got more than 200 licensed cannabis businesses. Like we're getting to a point where that market is reaching something that we can say, this is, moderately successful. This is something that is sort of like what we envisioned it to look like. I don't think we're there yet, but I do think every day we're at least getting closer to that.
Well, and I'm going to take a reach in and say, you were dealing, I want to talk about the beer industry.
Sure, yeah.
Because if there's all these industries in our world, beer and alcohol are closer to cannabis and hemp than many other industries in our world, right?
Yeah, totally.
Let's think that they're close, relatively close together from a comparison standpoint. One industry is already fully online, exists globally. You can't really sell alcohol over state lines. Like, I think it's weird to sell, shouldn't say weird. It's like not allowed to necessarily ship beer from friend to friend. But do you think that the closeness in beer and weed, and I won't say good thing, But what has been your experience in?
Yeah, I ultimately do think it's a good thing. I think for a long time I've been wanting them to remain separate only because I think there is a difference. Cannabis has been long sold as like a wellness consumer lifestyle product, whereas alcohol I think is just a little bit different. As you say, lifestyle, wellness, consumer product, it's not that different. But I think I thought of them as separate worlds. But I think what they're showing in Minnesota is that they don't have to be. There's a great example of the Grateful Dead 60th anniversary in California. They had a licensed cannabis consumption area. You could go over there, legally smoke weed. It was sort of cool to do that at a Grateful Dead concert, but you weren't allowed to bring alcohol in. And so they had people that were like coming up and saying like, oh, I want to go smoke weed. And they're like, you got to chug your beer or throw it away. And so they would quick slam their beer and go on in. And like, that can't be safer than the world in which cannabis and alcohol just co-intermingle. And so I think places like Trail Magic, places like Surly, insert any brewery you want here, showed that these two worlds can coexist and that the rules that keep us safe around alcohol also keep us pretty safe around cannabis. And we don't need to think of it as something entirely different, something wholly unique. We have over 100 years of figuring out how to regulate alcohol. We can learn a lot from that and just treat it similarly.
Right.
I don't think the 3-tier system is the future for cannabis, but I do think by looking at how alcohol is able to be moved through the market, we can treat something similar.
Yeah.
I like that we have licensed transportation companies in Minnesota. I don't see a reason why DoorDash can't bring me cannabis, but I guess they can. It's just hemp, but not adult use.
That word. When I read your blog post, your Substack article, I agreed with you, and I thought, man, this whole thing's made up. Like this 4-letter word named hemp, and it's not that we are living in a market that has done fairly well adopting.
Mm-hmm.
What do they call it? Like loaded hemp.
Yeah.
They call it like,
yeah.
There's a term that gets used at the Capitol.
Well, and that's the tough part is like
intoxicating.
Yeah, intoxicating hemp. There we go. Hemp is like, I think it's been co-opted. I think it is sort of a real thing in that, like, if you're looking to grow for seed or fiber, or you're looking to grow for, making hempcrete, like there are applicable industrial hemp reasons if you'd be looking to grow this plant. And then I think we looked at the Farm Bill and said, oh, that also means weed. And it doesn't, and it shouldn't, maybe. I think legalization is the right step, but I do think that the Farm Bill never intended for the adult use market that we had that exploded. And so, I think
farmers haven't been growing hemp in Minnesota for the last 3 years. It keeps going down and down and down.
Totally.
And yet the industry keeps going up and up and up, and the farmers keep growing less hemp, and that's been a trend that's been happening for a number of years. And I've been paying attention to it, and it's puzzling, and it's disappointing, and it's not what the Farm Bill intended per se, because farmers aren't growing hemp.
Yeah. When the first report on Minnesota's hemp market came out, the Department of Agriculture did, they asked people, why are you growing? Gave them a bunch of different options. In years later, flower or CBD became a huge category that people were growing for. 70-80% of what the market was. The first year, they didn't even ask about that. It was, are you growing for grain or seed? And that was it. That was what the hemp market was. Very quickly, it became what we have today. I think inevitably it needs to be given back to the farmers that are growing for fiber, because there's no reason they should be having to send their stuff for testing. Like, it's a different market. And if you're looking to make T-shirts or bags or all these cool hemp products, like that
happens in China, and you're welcome.
Yeah, no, I know. But I do think that, like, I agree with you that, like, the hemp that we have today is a made up term.
What strains are CBD farmers growing? I wonder what's in these beverages.
It's a good question, and I think the reality is it's probably just adult use flower, not grown under an adult use framework, but grown in a way that in Minnesota would be considered adult use, but in insert state name here. Isn't. It's below 0.3% THC when they test it, and that's all that's really required.
Okay.
The THCA versus THC in certain states is different than is in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so I think you're able to have markets that they can grow huge amounts of biomass that are relatively rich in THC, but below the legal compliance point.
By weight.
Exactly. And be able to process that and get huge amounts of this. I don't know the exact strain, but I think it's probably more similar to the stuff that you see in a dispensary than it is to the stuff that you used to see in like the CBG white days.
Right. Yeah.
Like cherry abacus, like I remember when that was like the big in vogue strain in Minnesota's market.
Yeah.
And I don't think hemp farmers are growing anything like that anymore.
So that strain died because the OCM and the state didn't want it to be confused with THC flower.
Yeah, I think it's also because the market just moved on. Like there were a lot of consumers in Minnesota back in 2018, I guess 2020.
But have you ever tried a Laurel Crest CBG vape?
I can't say that I have.
CBG vapes, crystal, CBG extract, like that hits. And no one's going to grow it on the adult use side in Minnesota because it takes away from a THC plant.
Totally. Absolutely. And we have a market that I think for worse, doesn't allow hemp to cross into the adult use market. So it's not like you could, even the Laurel Crest, which I think makes a great product. I agree with you. Like all of their isolates are wonderful. Shout out Laurel Crest. But like that could exist in an adult use market and be able to supplement, but not in Minnesota. They've clearly drawn that line. So yeah, I think there's a world where minor cannabinoids are a positive thing. I just think right now when you only have 10,000 square feet, that's what you're growing.
Right. Yeah, I bring up Laurel Crest because I saw on a LinkedIn post from one of their employees that CBG is not at risk through the deliberations that are happening in Washington, which makes me think CBG only products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to avoid path of least resistance.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. I think I'll be curious to see who is the growers of biomass under the new regulations.
In Minnesota.
Just generally, I think nationally. Because there's nothing that under the new rules would prohibit someone from making a CBG product. There's nothing that would prohibit that from being shipped across state borders. Someone with a hemp retailer's license could sell that in Minnesota. I just am curious about the grower of the material that's making that product. Where are they? What market is it that allows them to grow high cannabinoid hemp flower where they couldn't just grow adult use anymore?
It's international.
Yeah.
Because if 0.4 goes into effect, then you're not, from what I've been put onto is like, it doesn't ban import. It turns it goes back to the Minnesota and Wisconsin of 2022 when the cease and desist letters were going out here but not there. So you can bring it in like you can bring it in from Wisconsin right now. We're not actually solving the problem. The more that we prohibit the plant, the problems don't go away.
You want to play a game?
Yeah.
All right. So I brought a very short game because I didn't know how much time we would have, but wanted something that we're hanging out, we're doing the thing, we got to do it. So this is a game called Legal or Illegal. It's very basic. I'm just going to give you a scenario. You tell me whether you think it's legal or illegal. So here's like a warm-up round.
Yeah.
You grow one legal plant at your home, but you took Dr. Dabs and Matt Roberts' class, so it was so big, you now have way over your legal limit. Is that legal or illegal?
You are illegal.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. So, all right, here's the first one. A licensed Minnesota dispensary sells low-dose hemp pre-rolls and vapes, but testing later shows it contains way more THC. But the box has a pretty cute bee on it. Is this legal or illegal?
We talked about it on the episode today. You can have strong values. You can be a leader in your community. But if you are illegally selling a product, the OCM is only going to get more strict with you. And if you did this right now, you would be illegal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, so here's another one. I think they only get easier from here. So a Wisconsin shop wants to order 500 milligram gummies and THCA vapes from a Minnesota hemp producer who has a pending license with OCM. They want to ship them across state lines and sell them to consumers without checking IDs because, it's just hemp. Is that legal or illegal?
That's just Hudson.
Yeah, that's totally legal. Yep. You're totally good to go with that. All right, here we go. Next one. A customer orders THC gummies online and the post office brings them to you. Is that legal or illegal?
Oh my God, I love this game. So this question, can you repeat it?
Oh, yeah. So a customer orders THC gummies online, and the retailer ships them straight to the door through USPS. Is this legal or illegal?
As long as the OCM doesn't know, it's completely legal.
Yeah, this is legal for now. Yeah. The judge said, OCM, you got to stop, so it's legal.
But Tanner,
Here we go.
this company has
future compound.
has
Absolutely.
stopped selling and has stopped shipping to Minnesota.
Oh,
They believe that they need to have that signed 21 plus at the door, and I believe that the shipping is too cost prohibitive for future compounds. I'm having to ship this in from friends and family after I order it.
Oh, well, this is, I think, the most exciting part is I like Minnesota's rules. I think everyone should follow them. If they're not a company based in Minnesota, OCM doesn't have authority to regulate them. They could do whatever they want. And so, like, not that I'm saying they should break Minnesota's law and just ship it into Minnesota without checking IDs, but I don't think they have to. I think they could. Not a lawyer, but I think they could.
Also, this is so much more milligrams than what the OCM allows
Unfortunately.
in CBD tincture.
Which is wild because this isn't even something that anyone would look at and be like, wow, that's crazy, intoxicating, or dangerous. It's like,
No,
that's all right. Well, here we got some more. We got some more.
Yes.
So a city says we are absolutely not banning cannabis businesses, and we're not going to deny your registration. We're just going to simply vote to not approve it. Is that legal or illegal?
That's legal.
Yeah, so it's likely illegal, but we don't really know. It's actually in court right now. The judges are hoping to release their decision by the end of this month, so we'll see.
Really?
Yeah, so we might know by the time this comes out whether it's legal or illegal.
Is this happening in southern Minnesota?
So this is Albert Lee's. Yep, if you know the case going on there, they've been going at it for quite a while, and the court ruled the city was wrong. They have to give the license because he applied and he was qualified. The city is saying, no, we don't. And in fact, we only allow 4 businesses that are licensed, and we already have 4. So are you going to ask us to break our own laws? And so we'll see. All right, here we go. Next one. So someone tests positive for THC at work, but they explain that it's not the dangerous Schedule 1 THC. It's not the sketchy hemp THC or the recreational THC, but instead it's the much more reasonable Schedule 3 medical THC. Is that legal or illegal?
Wow. You know, believe it or not, I've never been asked this question before, so I don't know the answer to it. But I'm going to say it's legal.
So soon under a new order, we'll see, not to get political, I think the Trump administration has a way of writing orders and not necessarily enacting them all the way through. But the Schedule 3 change could be pretty huge where suddenly people are able to, if they're medical patients, receive cannabis, and even if there are workplace restrictions, that's now a legal medical product. It's different rules, a lot that could change, but we'll see. So
Cannabis has always been a no-no with drug tests.
yes,
As long as you and I have been working in the system.
absolutely. If you want to work for a federal contractor, that's a no-go.
We've always had the assumption that if you tested for marijuana on your drug test, positive cannabis test, you may not get the job. This goes so much further than anything we've ever experienced.
So much so. Yeah, it's a reshifting of really how we're thinking about cannabis. And while I poke fun at it, I think there's a lot of positives that could come from it.
It's a huge windfall. Are there more questions?
We got one more. It's a final one. So a Minnesota municipal liquor store operating under a lower potency hemp edible retailer license with a lower potency hemp edible retailer operations endorsement. They want to sell a 10 milligram THC, 25 milligram CBD, 25 CBG hemp-derived beverage for their Hanukkah 8 Crazy Flight sale. Now, a quick note is that Hanukkah is December 4th through 12th this year. Is this legal or illegal?
Hanukkah's a few months away. I'm thinking about that. That's the formula, the blend doesn't scare me.
Nope. You're right. The blend, It's compliant.
It's a decent blend. A little. I mean, it's Hanukkah. You know, it's gonna be. That's a strong. It's a
Yeah,
strong dose.
Yep. It's one that Adam Sandler himself would approve of, I imagine. Sponsor the show or something.
It's a municipality.
Yep.
It sounds like it has the license and
Got
the
the
right
license.
endorsements. Yep. The right endorsements. I don't see any issue with this. I think they're legal.
So unfortunately, that's probably going to become illegal come December of this year, because this is post-November. The law around hemp has changed. It now has more than 0.4 milligrams of THC in it, meaning it's no longer a federally legal hemp product. And while it's legal within Minnesota's framework, because they're a municipal liquor store, they have a federal license that allows them to sell alcohol, and they will have to follow all federal regulations around cannabis, including the change in the rules of hemp. And so we're going to see this weird dynamic where, according to state rules, I agree with you, there's nothing wrong with that situation. According to their liquor license they have, it might be a problem. And so more to come.
0.4 is debilitating to the entire product category.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. That's less than when I used to work for Bridget at Ground and Garden, when she had her bonbons that were sold as CBD bonbons. They were made with rosin that had also THC in it.
Yeah.
And they oftentimes tested around like 5 or 6 milligrams THC. And that she wouldn't even be allowed to sell those anymore. No. She'd have to totally change that. And
but by weight, she was able to.
Yeah. Yep.
Those are heavy.
Yep, absolutely. But like I said, the great days of the old times of hemp.
Well, and that was 2019 when I really remember those. I put friends onto them. Like, she was doing deliveries. Her team was doing car deliveries.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, it's I want to leave with a note of optimism, because I do think it's been really exciting to see the people that have been in this market for a while saying, we need this change. We need to move forward towards something that allows us to be a little bit more open. I think Bridget herself would tell you that the rules suck. There needs to be a lot of changes around them, but that they're able to sell flower legally in their store, openly grow it. Like we are reaching that point where we do have a legal cannabis market in Minnesota, and that's exciting. Yeah. And I think there's a lot that still needs to change. We're going to keep figuring out as a community more and more every day.
Yeah.
But it's so cool to be in a state where, I can give cuts to friends. I can grow in my backyard. I can process in my garage. And as someone's walking their dog by, I get to wave. They're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just washing a bunch of weed."
Arts and crafts.
Exactly. This is, we're just hanging out. That we live in a state that we're able to do those types of things. We have, I think, more freedoms around cannabis than even some of the original legalization states. And they've been at this fight for more than a decade. And so I think we are in the most unique place to be in cannabis right now. It's exciting to be able to see this all grow every day. And while it feels slow, I think when we look back, shameless plug here.
Yeah.
I'm finishing up a book through the U of M Press. It's going to be coming out spring of next year. I finally have all of my parts in. I'm done with my editing. It's off to the copy editor. So I've been doing a lot of reflecting about where our market has come. And I got involved in this back in 2014, in like the medical days of really trying to figure out what does medical look like in Minnesota.
Normal.
Yeah, absolutely. To the campaign for full legalization in 2018 to like, I think it's been a ride, but we're exactly where we wanted to be. I mean, we can sort of do what we want to do, and while the rules do need to change, as I've now said for like third or fourth time, we live in a market with legal weed, and that's sort of what we're always fighting for.
And the ability to produce at home.
Yeah.
Right.
I just got a public data request back from the state of Minnesota looking on arrests since legalization went into effect. There's been way too many arrests. The racial disparities are off the charts. But in terms of people being arrested for having too much cannabis at home, since 2023, there's been 4 people. 4, that's it. And now that's bad. We should have less than that, right? Like no one should be arrested for having too much weed at home.
I mean, free DECA out.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, that's way better than it was a decade ago. And that's, if we keep that in mind, the $50 grams don't seem too bad. And, it's
4 people have been arrested for cannabis, for having too much cannabis at home
In their home. Yeah. A lot of people have been arrested for having it as a minor, for having it in schools, having it in, out in public too much. But in terms of being at home, I've violated my possession limits 4
Since legalization?
since legalization.
Wow.
And that's, it's, like I said, 4 too many, but a heck of a lot better than it was back in 2014.
Yeah.
And so we
That's
rode
progress.
in the golden times. Yeah. Yeah. What are you excited to see over the next couple of months?
I like how far we've normalized cannabis. We as the collective, everyone who's ever done anything to have Cub Foods sell 12-ounce cans of it, like, wasn't what you set out to do in 2014 necessarily, but it fits into the greater vision.
Totally. But let's go back there. We're at a normal meeting. We're thinking about well, maybe we should go stand outside the Twins game and hand out flyers or whatever. And if someone came in and said, hey, in 2025, Target is going to be selling cannabis products, I'd be like, what the fuck have you been smoking, man? I want some of that. But no, that's the reality of it.
You'd be quite surprised. You'd be dumbfounded. And you'd be happy as well. I joked on LinkedIn last night that they're the largest MSO on the block.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth? And I think that's going to be the even bigger shift with rescheduling that I think is going to be exciting is MSOs look like big companies now because they're big in the cannabis game, but compared to alcohol, it's nothing. Once the floodgates open, I think we're going to see a whole new definition of what industrial cannabis looks like, for better and for worse.
Yep. Yeah, we just take such a personal approach and mindset when it comes to this plant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a part of it. That's a part of her. She's connected to us, and we
totally
connect to her.
And that's the part that I hope the craft market continues to keep alive. I think the industrial market has shown it won't.
Mm-hmm.
The legacy market, I think, will.
As Childish Gambino once said, "This is America."
Yeah, exactly.
All right, folks, if you enjoyed this episode and would like to see Tanner Berris back on the Canna Connect Show, please leave us a comment, leave us a like, let us know what you like. We like C-Labs.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I would definitely buy more of this, that's for sure. It's good stuff.
Good stuff.
But yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it. Shout out to the new studio. This is pretty sick, at least new to me.
Yep. Plug in Open Window Productions and Talking Head Studios. We shoot all of our content here if we're not live at Lucky Leaf or live at CannaCon, and would love to have you back live at CannaCon.
I'd appreciate that.